Yeah, well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Cooking with eXtine. In the last episode, we went over some knife basics, and right now we're going to put them to use. Starting off with some onions here, and I'm going to take the skin off by just chopping through the top and bottom, and then cutting them in half. Pretty much always going to need it cut in half, unless you're just kind of keeping these around the store. And I took the little kind of hairy bottom off as well because that'll make it easier to peel. Now, if you're trying to do onion strips, that's what I'm saying is you can kind of cut off this bottom. One thing that you can do in addition to that is cut it in half to then get like a little bit more strips going on. But what I'm going to show you is how to dice an onion. Now, this is my preferred way to do it. If you're trying to get a really small dice, one way to do it is to take off the layers one at a time until you get more in towards the center. Then just go through the layers, cutting them into strips like that, and then coming across. This is kind of the restaurant style to dice a whole onion. And basically what I'm going to do is I got my fingers pinched real tight up top here. I'm cutting in downwards at an angle. And even with my sharp knife, sometimes you get a little bit of resistance. But you just got to be a little bit careful and not go too far. I'm kind of switching my grip a little bit now as I get further into the onion, but at the same time I'm still keeping everything way above where my knife is. Now I'm trying to get most of the way through on the side here, and it is kind of angled down, but at the same time you don't have to go all the way in. And then now that I've gotten those cuts in, you can see I just did 3 cuts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut vertically like so, and this is a bit about what you call like a medium dice, and you get some parts kind of coming off already, but these are already at that size that we want. And now that I got it right here, I'll just do my claw grip and I'll just come down the side nice and easy, and again doing things kind of slow just for demonstration purposes. Now once you get about here, or maybe even a little bit further out, you start to lose some of the stability of the onion. And that's fine, just let it fall down. And you can see I'm just going to take a little bit off the top there. And then what you can do is come down on the sides, make another little cut here, and really get all the onion out of this. I'm going to show you how to cut a couple other things and talk about a little bit more about the mechanics that are going on here. First off, with this celery, what you want to do, since we're trying to look for a dice about the same size as that onion, is cutting from the root side out to the beginning, out to the top. And you'll just make little slivers in it, leaving the root intact so that you can keep everything together nice and easily. Now, one of the principles that I teach people is that the more stuff that you can cut at a time, the faster it's going to be. If you're cutting twice as much stuff, but you're going a little bit slower, it'll still be faster overall. Now, similar to how I was cutting the onion, I'll show you the first kind of style of cutting here, which is basically what we call like the locomotion method. And you can see I'm just kind of coming in, I'm going forward towards the veggies, and again doing things pretty slowly while I'm watching it. The other is just kind of a straight up rock, like up and down. And some people, when they do this, they're actually either bringing the knife and traveling backwards or pushing the stuff into it. That's going to be more useful for when we get into the garlic. The other method is to kind of chop backwards, coming like this. And that can be really a good fast way to cut. When you're cutting a lot more vegetables at once, or stuff that's a bit more stiffer, then the locomotion method is going to be a lot faster and just easier. Again, you're using a lot of the length of the knife in order to slice, instead of just kind of trying to brute force it. Now for something like carrots, again, uniformity overall is what you're looking for when you're chopping things. That's because you want it to cook evenly. So if things are cut about the same shape, then when you go to cook them, they're going to cook at about the same time. So I'm going to cut this carrot down because we're going to want to do the front side of it that's real thin and small, different than how we're going to want to do the back side of it. So for the front here, even just in the beginning, I'll just start with what I have. Again, doing kind of that rocking motion. Now that I've gotten about halfway through it, I'm going to cut the carrot in half once, lay this down, and again just do that rocking motion, go through it. And you can see I've done this quite a lot, so I can get through that very quickly. But for you newer cooks out there, you can just take your time, go nice and slow with each chop, and really make sure that you're getting the width on the cut that you want, as well as maintaining your safety. And I'm just doing that rocking method here, but as I get closer to the end and the cutting gets a little bit more tough, as well as the height of the carrot changes, then I'll switch my methodology and go for more of a just kind of straight across cut. And here, it's important, I'm kind of holding the carrot down, and I have a clear eye of where my knife is away from my fingers, which is the most important. I'll cut down a little bit more, and then I'll cut these carrots one more size down. So again, just rocking here, using my hand to keep everything nice and tight together. And then as I get further out, I'll switch to more of just a kind of a straight slice across. There's our cut carrot. Now finally for this garlic, I'll show you just to start again in the beginning. Since this is a much smaller veggie, and if I want to do really quick chops, I can just do that coming across, coming backwards on the knife. That's something that I would do for like cabbage, but it's a little excessive, and again, safety first. So, kind of once you get a bit more comfortable, you can try that style of cutting, but really also to just get started here, slicing with that rolling method is going to work about just as good. Again, it's always most important to just be safe. If this garlic really kind of gets a little too down to the root, it's not being very stable, you can always just flip it and cut the other way through. And again, I like to try to do as much as possible, so that even if I do it a little bit slower, I'm still getting more product cut. And now that I've gotten this in slivers, what I'm going to be doing is mincing this garlic. So at this point as well, you can still kind of maintain your finger as a guide. Go through it again using this claw grit. But once you get to this point, this is also where you'll see some people just kind of give up on holding the blade, and you can just kind of go through it, using both hands to make sure that your knife is nice and stable, and just kind of going through it, repetitively. You can use your knife to scrape up the garlic, get it back in the center, wipe the garlic off the side, and just kind of go through it again. So this is basically that rocking motion that I was doing before, but you don't necessarily need your hand as a guide if you're really just trying to mince it and get it nice and fine. And that's going to be good enough, so we'll put that aside. Now, using your blade like this to pick up things off the cutting board, it's definitely a bit more of an advanced tactic. Make sure that you're not cutting yourself, nicking yourself. You can use a bench scraper for this. Some people say that doing this kind of dulls your blade, but I think that's pretty kind of a small concern and not really an issue. But certainly if you have a bench scraper nearby, that's something that's really great to use for this purpose. So those are the basics of chopping, slicing, as well as dicing. There's all sorts of cuts that you can do. It's a lot of fun. If you have a mandolin, that can be really helpful for getting some of these finer cuts like juliennes or just kind of really fine sliced ingredients. At the same time, mandolins can be pretty dangerous. An important trick is to use a towel and use the towel to push the ingredient through the mandolin. That way the towel will hit it before your hand does. Of course, a Kevlar glove is an excellent implement to use as well to really ensure your safety, and that's what's most important, your safety instead of necessarily the speed of cutting the ingredient. That's it for this edition, ladies and gentlemen. Coming up next though, I'll show you how to put these ingredients that we just chopped to use. Stay tuned.